ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. So, Canto 3, Chapter 6, Verse 20. Gudam pumso vinirpinnam mitro lokesha avisat vayunam senayena visargam pratipadyate.
Hare Krishna, everyone. My Danut Pranam to everybody. Translation: the evacuation channels separately become manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus, the living entities are able to pass stool and urine.
Verse 21. Hastavasya vinirpinnam indra swarpatiravisat swartayam sena purusho yaya vrittim prapadyate.
Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic form separately become manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them, and thus the living entity is able to transact business of his livelihood.
Verse 22. Padavasya vinirpinnau lokesho vishnuravisat gatya swamsena purusho yaya prapyam prapadyate.
Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately become manifest, and the demigod named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, enter with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination.
Verse 23. Buddhim chasya vinirpinnam vagisho disnyamavisat bodhenam sena bodhavyam patipatiryato bhavet.
When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities.
Verse 24. Hridayam chasya nirpinnam chandrama tisnyamavisat manasam senayena vikriyam patipadyate.
After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus, the living entity can conduct his mental speculations.
Verse 25. Atmanam chasya nirpinnam abhimano visatpadam karmanam senayena kartavyam pratipadyate.
Thereafter, the materialistic ego of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities by which the living entity transact his objective actions.
Verse 26. Sattvam chasya vinirpinnam mahandishnyam upavisat chittenam senayena vijnanam pratipadyate.
Thereafter, When his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy, Mahatattva, entered with his conscious part. Thus, the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge.
Verse 27. Shirsnosya kamnaperupapadyata gunanam vratayo yesu pratiyante suradaya.
Thereafter, from the head of the gigantic form, the heavenly planets were manifested, and from his legs the earthly planets, and from his abdomen the skies separately manifested themselves. Within them, the demigods and other also were manifested in terms of the modes of material nature.
Verse 28. Atyantikena sattvena divam deva prapedire dharam rajasvabhavena panayo ye chatananu.
The demigods, qualified by the super-excellent quality of the modes of goodness, are situated in the heavenly planets, whereas the human beings, because of their nature in the mode of passion, live on the earth in the company with their subordinates.
Verse 29. Tartiyena svabhavena bhagavannapimashritaha upayorantaram vyoma ye rudrapar sadam gana.
Living entities who are associates of Rudras develop in the third mode of material nature or ignorance. They are situated in the sky between the earthly planets and the heavenly planets.
Verse 30. Verse 30. Mukhato vartata brahma purusasya kurudvaha yastan mukhatvatvarnanam mukhyo put brahmano guru.
O chief of the Kuru dynasty, the Vedic wisdom became manifested from the mouth of the Virat, the gigantic form. Those who are inclined to this Vedic knowledge are called Brahmanas, and they are the natural teachers and spiritual masters of all the orders of the society.
Verse 31. Bahubhyo vartata shatram kshatriyastat anuvratah yojatasтрayate varnan paurusha kantaka kshatat.
Thereafter, the power of the Thereafter, the power of protection was generated from the arms of the gigantic Virat form, and in relation to such power of Kshatriyas also came into existence by following the Kshatriya principle of protecting society from the disturbance of thieves and miscreants.
Verse 32. Vishnu vartanta tasyorvor lokavritti karir vibho Vaishyastad udbhavo vartam nirnam ye samavartayat.
The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their distribution of the prajas, was generated from the thighs of the gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas.
Verse 33. Padbhyam bhagavato jajne shushrusa dharma siddhaye tasyam jatapuro यत्रो यद्वृत्य तुष्टये हरि.
Thereafter, service was manifested from the legs of the personality of Godhead for the sake of perfecting the religious function. Situated on the legs are the Shudras who satisfy the Lord by service.
Verse 34. Ete varnasvadharmena यजन्ति स्वगुरुं हरिं श्रद्धयात्मा विशुद्ध्यार्थं यजत सह वृत्तिभिः.
All these different social divisions are born with their occupational duties and living conditions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, the unconditional life and self realization one has to worship the Supreme Lord under the direction of the spiritual master.
Verse 35. एतत् शक्तिर्भगवतो दैवकर्मात्मरूपिणा कश्रद्यात् उपकर्तुं योगमाया बलोदयम्.
O Vidra, who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the gigantic form, manifested by the eternal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Verse 36. तथापि कीर्तयं यङ्गा यथा मति यथा श्रुतं कीर्तिं हरे स्वं सत्कर्तुं गिरम् अन्यापिता सतिम्.
In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would be would remain unchaste.
Verse 37. एकान्तलाभं वचसोऽनुपुंसं शुश्लोकमौलर्गुणवादमाहुः श्रुतेश्च विद्वाद्भिरुपकृतं यं कथाश्रुतायम् प्रयोगम्.
The highest perfectional gain of humanity is to engage in discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the ear is served just by being near them.
Verse 38. आत्मनो वसितो वत्स महिमा कविनादिना संवत्सरसं सहस्रन्ते तिया योगविपाकया.
O my son, the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1,000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable.
Verse 39. अथो भगवतो माया मायिनामपि मोहिनी यत्स्वयं चात्मवर्त्मात्मा न वेद किमुता परे.
The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potency is unknown even to the self sufficient Lord, so it is certainly unknown to others.
Verse 40. यथोप्राप्यान्यवर्तन्त वाचश्च मनसा सह अहं चान्य इमे देवास् तस्मै भगवते नमः.
Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto him as a matter of sanity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I hope all of you are okay. Today,
Yes, Mataji.
we're going to read Canto 3, Chapter 6, and verses 20 to 26. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I'm not even qualified to do all this, but thank you for your blessings so that we all can be in this Sangha. And may Krishna, Lord Sri Krishna, please shower his mercy on all of us so that we can hear things rightly and I say things correctly. And all of us try to execute them perfectly under the Lord's guidance, Sri Radharani and Sri Krishna. We've also prayed to Lord Vyasadeva, who's written the Srimad Bhagavatam, to shower his blessings, who's none other than an incarnation of Lord Sri Krishna, to help us understand this very difficult chapter. And as we are conditioned souls, our senses are imperfect, and hence whatever we say does not come out correctly, the way how it was said originally by Lord Krishna or Vyasadeva. So we pray unto the Lordship that they give us that senses to understand Srimad Bhagavatam according to our level of intelligence. Hare Krishna. Can somebody do the Mangalacharam, please, if you don't mind?
I do it, Mataji, if no one wants to do it.
Please do.
Hare Krishna. Om Agnanantatimirandasya Gnananjana Salakaya Chakshuru Olmalita Mena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shitpamlam Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Vitam Sadhetam Sadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanto Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priya वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसादि गौर भक्त वृंद. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. हरे कृष्णा.
Thank you, Mataji, for the lovely prayer, and thank you for the reciters. I'm so sorry I arrived late, so I could not listen to your recitations, but I'm sure you must have done very well. Today the chapter is about, again, we're continuing with the creations of the Lord. And initially we read at how, sorry. Initially we saw that how the Mahatattva was formed, and then from there, again, how the three modes of energy are formed. I think in this chapter we see that how the human form of the Mahavishnu, how each part represents every senses, and we have demigods. Each of the demigods are the heads of that particular organ, basically. From here, what we can see is that if I can just go to so the first thing from the top we can go, from what I can see from this chapter I've taken it up, is that we have the eyes. The eyes represent the sun and the moon. So the sun obviously is for the vision, and the moon. So moon has its own importance here. So maybe we should first start reading the verses, and then we can take it from there. Is it okay if somebody is a volunteer? One person is enough, I think, to read through the whole thing, because there's no purpose in any of them. They are just only translations. So please forgive me. There's some background noise, so please forgive me. I'm living over here, so people are the room where I am doesn't have good internet, so I'll have to sit over here. But please forgive me. Okay, so can we have a volunteer to read all the verses, please?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
It's
Krishna.
text 20. The evacuating channel separately became manifest, and the director named Mitra entered into it with partial organs of evacuation. Thus, the living entities are able to pass stool and urine. Shall I continue, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, please continue all of them.
Next 21. Thereafter, when the hands of the gigantic form separately became manifested, Indra, the ruler of the heavenly planets, entered into them. And thus the living entity is able to transact business for his livelihood. Text 22. Thereafter, the legs of the gigantic form separately became manifest, and the demigods named Vishnu, not the personality of Godhead, entered with partial movement. This helps the living entity move to his destination. Text 23. When the intelligence of the gigantic form separately became manifest, Brahma, the Lord of the Vedas, entered into it with the partial power of understanding, and thus an object of understanding is experienced by the living entities. Text 24. After that, the heart of the gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered the moon demigod with partial mental activity. Thus, the living entity can conduct his mental speculations. Text 25. Thereafter, the materialistic ego of gigantic form separately manifested itself, and into it entered Rudra, the controller of false ego, with his own partial activities, by which the living entity transacts his objective actions. Text 26. Thereafter, when
Mataji, please read the purport, please.
Purport of text 25. The false ego of materialistic identity is controlled by the demigod Rudra, an incarnation of Lord Shiva. Rudra is the incarnation of Supreme Lord who controls the mode of ignorance within material nature. The activities of the false ego are based on objective of the body and mind. Most persons conducted by false ego are controlled by Lord Shiva. When one reaches a finer version of ignorance, he falsely thinks of himself as Supreme Lord. That egoistic conviction of the conditioned soul is the last snare of the illusory energy which controls the entire material world. Text 26. Thereafter, when his consciousness separately manifested itself, the total energy, Mahat Tattva, entered with his conscious part. Thus, the living entity is able to conceive specific knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, let's start this today's conversation with invoking the Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jai Shri Krishna. So today, basically, we have just to know that how the different parts of the body, represent what. So let's start off with like how. Just going back again. Obviously, up here, Maitra Muni is trying to tell Vidura how the creation of the Lord. So the demigods, we have lots of demigods. So Lord Vishnu had dedicated these parts of the body to different parts of to different demigods who are in charge of the certain areas. So when we see, so the eyes are represented by the sun one side and on the moon, and then obviously the Surya is a demigod, and then we have Chandra. So they represent for the eyes also. And then we have Anila, that is for the skin. Again, for the skin, we have got like two demigods. One is for the touch sensation. We have Anila is the demigod who's given this task to look after that department. And the skin, so all these are like obviously their senses, all of these. So every demigod is in control of a particular sense. So skin, again, from the skin we have the sensations and the itch and all that is by Oshadhya. And then we have the nostrils which serve the purpose of smelling, for aroma, to smell good or bad odors. We have the Ashwini Kumaras. And then we have now the palate. The palate is again in your throat. Yeah, you have the roof of your mouth and the posterior part of the part of the mouth which is much more in the back. That is represented by Varuna. So Varuna is again the lord of the ocean or water, and that. So what is the sense we get from there is the taste sensation. Now Agni is a little bit, a bit more, you have to be your speech and your words. So there again, Agni over here is divided into different areas. I think I must have read about this, but it's the way how your speech is manifested, and what the content of the speech, and how it is directed towards whom. So all that are parts of Agni. So basically, Agni is really a very powerful one. So it represents words. So words are like sword. We spoke last time. We said like once it comes out of its cover, it's difficult to put it back. So we have to be very careful with what we say. So that is one. Then we have ears. So our ears are represented by the lords of the directions. So different directions, we have about 12 directions. So they are represented by the lord of those directions. Then we have the genitals. So genitals is for sexual pleasure and also for creation of the next generation. That is by Prajapati. And then we come to this part of this section where about from 20 to 26. we have for the evacuation channels for your alimentary canal, and also for your for your bladder, for your kidneys, for your alimentary canal and for your bladder. For you can pass stool and urine. So these are basically the evacuation ones. We have Mitra. So Mitra, I was trying to find out who Mitra was, whether it is one of those demigods where of the Adityas or not. I'm not still 100% sure, but obviously I'll come back to it when I get some information. Then the Lord for hands. Now the hands represent work, right? So mostly for business, for any other work, anything you do it with your hands. So that it represents hands. So that is by Indra. Then your legs are being represented by Vishnu, which is the demigod, not the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what does it represent? Movement. So wherever we go, so that represents a demigod by Vishnu. And then comes obviously your power of understanding. So you need intelligence for the power of understanding. And that is represented by Brahma, Lord Brahma, for intelligence. Then your mind. So all you see how all the vasus are coming up over here in a way. So mind. Now your mind is again, it is represented by the moon. So the moon, again, what does it do? It always causes mental speculations for you to speculate. So that is represented by the moon. So sometimes we say he's fickle-minded. So when we say fickle-minded, even in astrology, when we see like, oh, the influence of the moon, so his mind is not strong, they take it as fickle-minded. But of your mental speculation, for you to think a bit more deeply, is represented by the moon. But moon has different characters we should understand. We should not represent by the negative connotation. Moon is one of the very important planets. Obviously, for us, it is not a planet, but in Bhagavatam Shastra, it is one of the biggest planets of the earth, and it is much, much more beyond reach. And then we have ego. So our main false ego, which is really the biggest part in our material life, the false ego. That is represented by Rudra. So Rudra is the important, he is the important lord for false ego, which is where they say we have to, so only Lord Shiva will be able to take out your false ego. And even though it's in the mode, it will take out your mode of ignorance and then make you elevate your spiritual consciousness. Then the last but not the least is your consciousness. So your fact that what is consciousness? So your consciousness is that you are part and parcel of the Lord. So that is represented by Mahat Tattva. So what that consciousness gives you is your specific knowledge, where you'll understand what your position is, constitutional position is, where you conceive the specific knowledge, they say. So that is by that is represented by Mahat Tattva. So as we go on, then obviously then they come and tell about the head, and then the lower part of the body, and then the abdomen goes on. But when we look at each and every senses, how each and every senses can be used in the used in the mode of goodness every time. So that is what we have to keep on working on. So when we look at the moons, I just wanted to say what moon represents and what sun represents, So basically, we know that sun is very important in this planet, where is it situated? We know sun is it is a representative of Narayana. We also call it a Surya Narayana, and it's a master of 3 Vedas. Yes, correct, Mataji. It affects the full moon. It affects us mentally, especially. And they say in hospitals, we say lots of psychiatric issues that happen during that time. And there's full moon. So Veda, so Narayana, so sun is the leader of Rig Veda, Yajur, and Samaveda. So he's also known as Traimaya sun. Sun is also known as Surya Narayana, and you know there are 12 Adityas. Then we have now the sun. Where does the sun represent? Where does it stay? It stays somewhere in between Bhur and Bhuvarloka. And then it just a revolution it does is it rotates and revolution it does, and then you have the 12 months. In the 12 months it rotates, and then we have the moon now. So what does the moon represent? Again, we have to see how the moon. We have 2 fortnights where it 1 month it's mostly in where there'll be too much of the brightness. And then the other, 15 days, there'll be too much, there'll be the brightness of the moon increases, and 15 days it goes down. So, you have, these are the different elements, you know. We have the moon, and then you have the sky, where the sky is again divided into 2 divisions called as ayanas, and where in the sky, the sun travels half to the north and half to the south, and that's why we say Uttarayana and Dakshinayana. And then we have over here, so the moon, where is this moon located? I'm just trying to go with the very mundane topics, but I thought it was a little bit important because it's such a dry chapter as far as. So the moon, last time also we spoke about the distance where the moon is. So where your rays of sunshine are, you know, the sun is obviously, it is between the Bhur and Bhuvarloka, but according to the Bhagavatam Shastra, I'm saying, 100,000 yojanas, it is above the rays of the sunshine. So the sun is obviously much, much more beyond, but this is above the rays of the sunshine. And so what happens is this the days and nights of the moon, right? So the days and nights, of the normal days and nights in the heavenly planets. So how are they represented? Like when it is day, when we have when the moon is, you know, when it is waxing, there you go towards Shukla Paksha, when you go towards Paurnami, right? So that is represented as days. Those 15 days of earthly days is equal to 1 day of the demigods. So during that time, in that period, you know, when the Shukla Paksha, those 15 days, when it is day in demigods, it will be night in the Pitraloka. And the opposite happens when in the Krishna Paksha. So in the Krishna Paksha, when the moon is waning, where? So from your new moon is where it is Amavasya. From Amavasya, when you go to Purnima, that is full moon, then you have that 15 days that is represented as day for demigods, at the same time night for the Pitas or Pitraloka. Whereas in the Krishna Paksha, what happens? When in the same 15 days, what happens from the brightness of the moon, on the Paurnami, it starts becoming darker and darker and darker, and then there is no moon. So when there is no moon, we call it as a new moon, according to the English this thing. But in Sanskrit, it is called Amavasya. So from Paurnami to or Purnima, whichever, depending upon which way you can pronounce, from that time, the nights, whenever it is night for the demigods. So when it is in the Krishna Paksha, it is night in the demigods. That's the night time for them. And it is a daytime for the Pitraloka. So then we have over here, you have to understand over here is that in the moon, so above the moon, then you have the stars. So the stars are about 200,000 yojanas. And then above the stars, we have Shukra Graha. We can see the Venus at times. So Venus is above the stars, and it represents auspiciousness, Shukra. Okay. Then above the Shukra, we have is Buddha Graha, you know, where it is Mercury. And that's about, again, everything comes in 200,000 yojanas. And what they say is Buddha is represented both as auspiciousness and inauspiciousness together. And then above that, we have Mars, which is called Anga Rakha. Anga Rakha Graha is the Mars, and that's 200,000 above the Mercury or Buddha. And they say it is fully inauspicious. Mangal is inauspicious. So nobody likes Mangal in the thing, because they feel there's always some sort of, it's like always there is instability and unsettlement and always there'll be always disagreements and lots of fights and all happen. And then above that, 200,000 yojanas we have is Brihaspati or Jupiter. So that is a very auspicious planet. So anybody who's in Brihaspati Graha, which is the largest cycle, again we have Brihaspati is like 20 years, and then Shukra is like 20 years. And then we have above that we have is Shaneshchara, the most deadly planet, is the Saturn. And that they again say is inauspicious because obviously it gives a lot of troubles. Above the Saturn is your Saptarishi. So Saptarishi, and the Saptarishi, what they do, they circumambulate Dhruvaloka. So in Dhruvaloka, where Dhruva is there, that is the place where Lord Vishnu resides within this universe. Yeah. So that is how these things are located. Now coming to the qualities of the moon, I was just thinking, so moon, why is moon so important? Sun gives us energy, light and everything. But moon is the main thing which is, it gives us, it has this Amrita quality of coolness. And that coolness is required because that is the time when you see all the flowerings happen in the night, all the fruits happen in the night, all the grains, they become in the night. So this coolness is required for the things to fructify. So basically it is called the life of all entities. And sometimes the moon is also called Jiva, and which is basically the chief living being within the universe. And this moon also has full of potencies, and it is so it is a deity of everyone's mind. So the moon rules the mind. So because it rules the mind, it is also called as Manomaya. Manomaya. And then because it is, it gives the potency to all the foods and herbs and grains and plants, it is also known as Annamaya. And because it's the source of life to all the living entities, the moon is also known as Amritamaya. And because it pervades in all the living entities and all the demigods, pitas, all the human beings, animals, birds, reptiles, plants, herbs, you name it, it is also known as Sarvamaya. So I thought moon was such an important thing to just even know about. Hindus, we actually depend upon the moon a lot because everything depends upon the moon, the calendar. We have a lunar calendar and we go by that calendar all the time. So then we looked into, I was just thinking about looking into Rudra also, one of the things. It's a very debated topic all the time because whether it's a demigod or a god or superior to Vishnu or inferior to Vishnu, there's always this debate happens between the Shaivites and Vaishnavites all the time. Who is the superior Lord? But according to Krishna consciousness, we know that Lord Krishna is the topmost, a supreme controller of every being in the universe. And from Krishna comes, from his expansions come everything else. So even Lord Shiva comes from his expansion. So you have to understand that for us, Vishnu is Lord Vishnu and Lord Krishna is the topmost, according to. But we must know that Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. And as we heard that from Shiva, our mode of ignorance gets rid of. So we should be very conscious of what we say, because we have to understand that all these gods and demigods and all these powerful personalities and beings which we are talking about in the Bhagavatam, they are so superior. We are just a small particle. When we look at how Krishna's, the Lord and the Paramatma, so the Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, when we look at all the three categories, we can know the quantity of how small we are. We're just so tiny, atomic and minuscule of whatever we're part and parcel of the Lord. And the super soul within us is more than us. And then obviously, Lord Krishna is the ultimate. He is infinite. So his qualities in them, the whatever we are is because of the Lord Krishna, and He's just given His part and parcel of Him for us to live. So I'm just trying to go over here. Is that normally? Let me go to Lord Shiva's thing. Is that how Lord Shiva has helped this universe? There are so many examples of how Lord Shiva helps this universe. First thing is when there was Samudra Manthan, when there was the churning of the ocean, when there was a fight between the demigods and the asuras, so the demons. That time when the halal poison came out, when the poison came out, the only person who could save this universe was Lord Shiva, when he drank the whole poison and he literally controlled it in his throat. And that poison was so strong that it turned his throat into blue color, and that's why he's known as Nilakantha. So you can see how important Lord Shiva is over there. And then also we have to understand how Lord Shiva, when Ganges comes down to the universe, when Ganges, Mother Ganga touches the toe of Lord Vishnu, and then obviously from there it had to come down to the earth, but the force of Mother Ganga is so much that it will destroy the whole of the earth planet. So how to reduce the force and the power of the Mother Ganges? Again, Lord Shiva comes to the rescue, and he locks the Mother Ganga in the mattress of his hair locks. And then from there, it comes out in a more regulated flow. I mean, when you look at Mother Ganga, the flow of the river is so torrential, how it is. Imagine if it was not matted in the locks of Lord Shiva, it would have just brought pralaya to the world, So that is again the importance of how Lord Shiva actually helps the universe in maintaining and bringing Mother Ganga over there. So I mean, when we did say about how sometimes they try to so Shiva obviously lives in a Shiva Loka, which is much more higher obviously than Brahma Loka, but it is in a different world altogether. But when we see how Shiva is, how Vishnu and Shiva, how are they related? The Vishnu is always related as milk, and Shiva as yogurt. So from milk comes yogurt, but it doesn't happen the opposite way. So from yogurt we can't get milk. So from Vishnu comes Shiva. So that is what one meaning we have to understand, that it is the Lord Shiva is expansion of Vishnu. From Vishnu comes Shiva. And also I mean, it is very difficult to say, but people have tried to explain that Shiva is neither an ordinary living entity. See, please do not be offended because how it is explained, just going only by what is being said. So everybody has their own Ishtadevata and they pray to that Lord. So please do not be offended with whatever I'm trying to say today. I'm just trying to read what is there in this in the scriptures, what I have in front of me. So over here, because the South, when you go to India, the South Indian people who are Shaivas, they will feel very offended if you say Shiva is less than Vishnu, and the other way around. So it is very difficult. So everybody's knowledge, according to everybody's specific knowledge and the intelligence, they will come out of this, and they will try to understand the way the Lord wants them to understand. So over here, they say Shiva is neither an ordinary living entity, Jiva, nor a typical demigod. So people keep on saying demigod. So they're trying to say that Shiva is not a typical demigod like Indra and other people, So what they're trying to say is he, in his own category of existence, which is known as Shiva Tattva, they say he's almost on the level of Vishnu. But because of his interaction with material nature, he is not counted as Vishnu Tattva, the category of Godhead. So you have to understand as to how the Shiva Tattva and the Vishnu Tattva are different over here, as we say about milk and yogurt. Now, we have to understand is that so over here, we know that Shiva is, and when we see how, well, I really don't want to say things which will cause controversies. Maybe I should not say something telling me not to tell things. But I think maybe we could go into, because I'm not very strong in this debate, so I don't want to get into controversies. And so we'll just leave it at that. But we remember that we have, when we have the sampradayas, we have the 4 sampradayas, we know that, right? So in that we have the Shiva Sampradaya or Rudra Sampradaya, which is Vishnu Swami Sampradaya. It's also known as Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, which is an authorized Vaishnava league in which Shiva is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Vishnu. So the other forms of Shiva worship as well, where the only authorized form comes down in Rudra Sampradaya, also known as Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, which is an authorized Vaishnava lineage in which Shiva is worshipped as the greatest devotee of Vishnu. So its adherents say that the ultimate liberation comes from devotion to Vishnu, and Shiva, they say, showed how to be the perfect devotee. And last time also we said Shiva shows us the path, and this is what they're trying to say. Even Shiva himself confirms that one can achieve the supreme destination only by the mercy of Vishnu. So Lord Shiva says, Mukti Pradata Sarvesham Vishnur Evana Samshayaha. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. So over here, what they, how much ever they try to say it is. So we know about just want to complete that thing by saying the 4 sampradayas, we have is, so the Lord Shiva is the original spiritual master of one of the 4 bona fide sampradayas, teaching the science of Vishnu Sampradaya, which we were saying. Then the other 3 are Lord Brahma, which we call Brahma Sampradaya, Goddess Lakshmi, Sri Sampradaya, and Kumaras, the Kumara Sampradaya. So that lineage, all of them are Vishnu devotees. Then coming to the ego bit, which I was just talking about. So when we look into I thought ego. So in our body, we have obviously the materialistic ego and the spiritual ego. So the materialistic ego, the spiritual ego is the real spirit soul, the true ego, which is your Atma, whereas the materialistic ego is a false ego. Now, as we see, remember those previous, I don't know, I think once maybe we have discussed about how we have 2 different types of wolves in us, or 2 different types of, you can call these egos as wolves or whatever, the good one and the bad one. And it depends upon which one you feed the most, that one wins. So if you feed your false ego most, your false ego will win. If you feed your true ego most, your spiritual soul, the spiritual soul will win. So it is up to you to decide which one you want to win. So this is something I was talking about, the ego. So over here, to remove the false ego, Lord Shiva is one of the greatest masters, to remove the false egos. And then coming to, I think I was also trying to just say this is now out of the topic of here now. So obviously now in this chapter, obviously now we'll go and learn about how different planets are formed, all the different, you have the Patal Loka, then you have your Swarga Loka, and all the 14 planets, how they're formed, and how the Sumeru mountain is in the middle, and how all these rotate. It's very beautiful. There's one, I think we have to give a link of how somebody had really done it in a beautiful YouTube video where it shows this universe, in the way how it is situated. And they're very minusculely, he's represented everything, but you can imagine how in this big thing of, they're quite huge. A little bit out of the topic, I'm just trying to see like how many Gitas are there in Bhagavatam? Do you all know? If that is okay with you all, I can just use this another 5 minutes to talk, and then I'll open it up for discussion. And please, and your comments. So we have how many Gitas, if somebody can tell me? You can name also. Okay, all of us know the first Gita, which we know, right? It is Srimad Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna obviously speaks to Arjuna and enlightens Arjuna, who is basically bewildered, and in this whether to fight or not to fight, and then tells about Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. And then obviously he tells about his universal form and the Virata Rupa, and how the 5 truths that the Bhagavad Gita it gives is about the Ishwar, the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan, the Jiva, living entity, Prakriti, the material nature, Kala, the time, and Karma, activities. So that is Bhagavad Gita. Then we have, so basically you're supposed to sing all the things in the form of a song. The moment you sing in the form of the song, it is more relishing and more enjoyable. It won't be like the scorching sun, just piercing into you, but it'll be like moonlight on the beach or somewhere nice, beautiful, cool breeze. That's how you will feel how Gita is. Yes, absolutely, Mataji. Rudra Gita. So Rudra Gita is a song of Lord Shiva, and it is in the 4th canto, 24th chapter, from verses 33 to 68. So how does this happen? So the Prachetas, when the Prachetas were being instructed by the father, King Prachina Barhi, they set out to perform devotional austerities to please Lord Krishna before taking charge of the kingdom. So knowing this, Lord Shiva arrived before them to guide them in the devotional service of Krishna and taught them the song, which is known as Rudra Gita. So this Rudra Gita is for the self-purification, for the Pracheta's self-purification. So what Lord Shiva does is he offers prayers to the Supreme Lord in the form of Chaturvyuha, the 4 expansions of Krishna, which are Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, and all the other deities of the elements, all the Vasus. Then Lord Shiva describes the beautiful form of Supreme Lord, and that is very dear to the devotees, and also the glory of seeing and how do we render service unto him. And Lord Shiva praises the unalloyed devotees of the Lord, the Vaishnavas, and prays for the Sangha, for the association. So he concludes this prayer by describing the relationship between the Lord and the material creation. So after chanting this Rudra Gita for 10,000 years underwater, the Prachetas attain the darshan of Lord Vishnu, who blesses them. And the 3rd one Gita, we can say, is the Venu Gita. So this is the song of Krishna's flute, where that is in the 10th canto, 21st chapter, verses 7 to 19. When we know Lord Krishna, when he enters the forest with the cows and the cowherd boys playing his flute. Then gopis they always comment. They want to listen to this, and they glorify that song of Krishna's flute. And then they discuss. Fantastic. Thank you, Mataji. Uddhav Gita is another one. The gopis' loving discussion is called Venu Gita. So the gopis are discussing about this beautiful song. So what are they saying? They are saying that the flute is more fortunate. They're saying like, oh God, look at this flute. It is so fortunate, for it constantly takes the nectar from Krishna's lips. So when Krishna is playing his flute, his moving becomes being stunned and non-moving entities tremble. So the peacocks become so crazy. Every living being becomes really crazy, ecstatic, and they start dancing. The cows start giving milk, and then the calves, they're standing still over there. I mean, everything. It's like very, very out of this world, and everybody feels so happy inside that they do things without the knowledge, and everybody is so very happy. So the gopis will try to, they're glorifying the fortune of Vrindavana. They're saying like, see, how lucky is Vrindavana to have Krishna, and how this Vrindavana is so lucky that it has attained the opulence of Krishna's direct footprints, Pada, all his footprints, and the Govardhana hill, and Krishna's dasas and dasis. All of them are serving the Krishna cows and friends. Then we also know what is following this is the Gopi Gita, which the gopis sing when Krishna leaves them and goes off in Rasa Leela time. So that's in 10th canto, 31 chapter 1 to 19. So during the full moon night, when Sharat Purnima time, then Krishna plays his flute and is attracting all the gopis. And all of them really come to be with Krishna for the Rasa dance. And then obviously, Bhavar Gita, that's right. Rasa dance. And then that is when he leaves them and he goes, they become really broken-hearted and apparently induced by Leela Shakti, which is the pastime potency of the Lord. The gopis feel proud of having received such special attention from the Lord that made Lord disappear. So the Lord doesn't like any amount of ego or pride, literally disappears. So Gopi Gita, obviously, it contains 19 verses, and thank you, Avaduta. The gopis glorify the land of Vrindavana and then obviously and accuse Krishna of cheating them, and yet acknowledge his earlier protection. And they express the desire of the blessings of Krishna's Padmapada, or lotus feet, lotus hands, lotus face. They glorify Krishna Katha. Remember Krishna entering the forest in the morning and returning to the village in the evening. And they're expressing the intense separation, which makes a moment like a million again. So all the gopis will weep loudly, and then Krishna returns again to give them life, because they're literally like as though there was no life in them, and to again give them life and reciprocate the love. Then you have the Yugala Gita, so where the gopis sing as Krishna wanders in the forest, and that is in Canto 10, 35, chapter 2 to 25, where all the gopis will, obviously, they would like the association of Krishna at night in the Rasa dance. Again, it's a part of that. And when they feel separation, that we sing about and they felt separation from him, where he went to tend his cows in the forest. So when Krishna was playing his flute to announce his coming to the trees, creepers, imagine all the trees, creepers, all of them are waiting over there. They're like us living beings, waiting in their own little way of reciprocating to Krishna. The creepers, the birds, the beasts, they are also suffering in separation. And the gopis love, they increased on hearing that sound. So when Krishna comes, obviously his pajeb and payam, the sound, the way how he puts his footstep, the moment he puts a footstep, there must be a vibration, I'm sure, for the people to feel. So then in separation, they sang about I have to see, Mataji, in the separate, in separation, they sing about Krishna's pastimes in the form of Yugala Gita. So this consists of 12 verses, and they sing at various times. The gopis stood in small groups here and there in Vrindavana, some in the front of Mother Yashoda. So as the mode of separation became even more intense, then Krishna's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes began spontaneously manifesting in their hearts. So the gopis sing, the beauty of Krishna attracts the minds of all. When he stands, his threefold Tribhangi form, plays upon his flute and plays on his flute. Then everybody, the siddhas, the type of demigod, they become attracted to him. The bulls, the cows, and other animals, they are again stunned. And as usual, when we know how Krishna plays his flute, everybody becomes stunned. जैसे किसी को shock लग गया, this is type, And then you can imagine the trees and creepers, they start growing more and more erupt. And then apparently the sap pours out like torrents of tears. And the birds, they close their eyes and they want to listen to this beautiful music. And look at the clouds, they want to rumble, they want to really make noise in reciprocation. And even Indra, Shiva, Lord Brahma, they all become so astonished. And as the gopis are anxious to offer everything they have to Krishna, so does the wives of the deer, black deer, who follow Krishna all the time. They also want to give everything to Krishna. And when Krishna is returning to Vraja, he plays his flute and while his young companions chant his glories. Then we have the Viraha Gita, where the gopis sing when Krishna leaves Vrindavan. That's again in Canto 10, chapter 39, from 19 to 31. Remember when Kamsa wants Krishna to come to Mathura, so that to have a dvandha or to have a fight. Then Akrura goes and takes Krishna and Balram to Mathura. That's the time they do not want, the gopis don't want Krishna and Balram to go to Mathura. And all the elders of Vrindavana, headed by Nanda Maharaj, they have to send them, even though they were so reluctant. However, the young gopis, they were really upset. They don't want to send them, They couldn't even bear the separation from Krishna. And they were really devastated. And thinking about this lengthy separation, then again in small groups, again they started singing this song called Viraha Gita. So they basically, what in the Viraha Gita, the gopis basically they condemn, they really criticize the creator. Why? Because he's separating Krishna from them. After showing them such a beautiful face, you're showing them, it's like you're showing them the laddu and taking it away from them. So it is like they're showing Krishna, then you're taking it Krishna away from them. So his beautiful face, they cannot forget it. And they say like Akrura did not even, his name is called Akrura. Akrura means not to be cruel. You don't even deserve that name. How? You're just the opposite. You're being so cruel by taking off Krishna from us, So how can even your name befit you? And then they go on crying and obviously absolutely very, 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 very heartbroken. And then they say is, oh my God, Mathura, the residents of Mathura is so lucky because they will have the association of Krishna. And so the gopis, they try to stop themselves, but they cannot shy anymore. They try to stop Krishna basically. So they're crying out loud, oh Govinda, oh Damodara, oh Madhava. But even as they wept, Akrura began taking away. Imagine how the child is crying and then the mother is taking away like that. You feel like Akrura is just taking away Krishna and Balram, and these gopis are crying like crazy. And they are literally running behind the chariots, but then obviously when Krishna looks at them and then he says, I will return, then they become pacified. So with their minds completely absorbed in Krishna, then they stand still as figures in a painting until they could no longer see Krishna, or the chariot, or the flag, or the dust cloud, anything. And then they keep on chanting Krishna's names, and then they go back to their homes, very brokenhearted. Then we have the Brahmara Gita, the Song of the Bee, which is again from the 10th canto, 47th chapter, from 12 to 21. So when Krishna goes to Mathura, then Lord Krishna, he sends Uddhava to Vrindavana with the message for the gopis. And when the gopis sees this lotus-eyed Uddhava, who looks similar like Krishna, resembles Krishna, and even the way he wears the clothes and ornaments. So they literally, they approached him very curiously, looking, is this Krishna or not Krishna? And they were trying to encircle him. So realizing that Krishna had sent him, they'd bring him to a place and speak a very secluded place and speak confidentially. And they remember Krishna's pastimes, and then they really, cry in separation. And then one of the gopis, deeply meditating on Krishna, notices a bumblebee, a Brahmara. So imagining it to be a messenger of Krishna, she rebukes indirectly Krishna. So the Acharyas in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explained that she is Srimati Radharani, who expressed her supreme love for Sri Krishna through 10 kinds of impulsive speech. Her song is called Brahmara Gita. So Srimati Radharani said, just as bees wander from flower to flower, Sri Krishna has abandoned the Vrajagopis and developed affection for others. She contrasted her own supposed ill fortune with her rival's good fortune, all the while glorifying the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of Lord Krishna. She then declared that although Krishna may have abandoned the gopis, they could not possibly stop remembering him even for a moment. So Uddhava was really astonished to see these gopis in this highest degree of pure devotion. And he tried to console them as they wanted to see Krishna, So then Uddhava then related to them Lord's message. Then there's another Gita called Mahishi Gita. So this is the song of the queens, and this is in Canto 10, chapter 90, 15 to 24. So when Krishna left Vrindavana, so after leaving Vrindavana, so Krishna resided with his queens in Dwaraka, which was quite opulent. So among other pastimes, obviously he would enjoy being with his wives in the ponds. So with his graceful gestures and loving dances, he enchanted their hearts, and the queens would become totally absorbed in thoughts of him. So the transcendental madness or unmada of the queens filled with such ecstasy that they saw their mood reflected in everyone and everything else. So these 10 verses, they express the ecstatic mood called as Mahishi Gita. So the queens address various creatures such as Kurari and the Chakravaka birds, the ocean, the moon, cloud, cuckoo, mountain, river, and so on. So they're declaring the great attachments to Sri Krishna. Then we have the Uddhava Gita. All of us know about this, the Krishna's teachings to Uddhava, which is in the 11th canto from 7 to 29. We know Uddhava, who is the dearest devotee of Krishna, who thinks of nobody else than Krishna, and who considers Uddhava as good as himself. So Krishna thinks Uddhava is as good as himself. So when Krishna was, in the last time of when Krishna was in this material world, then he was about to disappear from this world. Then obviously Uddhava was really very, very overwhelmed, and his feelings of separation and his desire to accompany Krishna. That time, Krishna wanted to send Uddhava to go to Badrikashram, which he goes to enlighten the sages there on his behalf. So this is actually exists Gita in a way. So Krishna, at that time, Krishna gives Uddhava his final teachings in the form of Uddhava Gita. This is the longest philosophical. So Uddhava Gita is more elaborate than Bhagavad Gita, and it comprises a wide range of topics, including detachment. So it becomes more philosophical over here. Detaching from the world. Then it tells about the 24 gurus, and then how the liberated and conditioned souls, then about the Lord's opulences, and then we have the Varnashram system, and then the devotional service, the Sankhya philosophy, the Jnana Yoga, how to worship a deity, the 3 modes of nature, material nature, the Vedic paths, along with examples. So obviously, after hearing Krishna's final instructions, then Uddhava goes to Badrikashram, and that is how we still have. That is where Vedavyasa also sits and writes down the Bhagavatam. The other Gita is called Vikshu Gita. So the song of Avanti Brahmana. From the only 2 more we have, I think. 3, I just want to tell you, not much. And the song of Avanti Brahmana from the 11th canto, 23rd chapter, 42 to 57. So over here, Brahmana Avanti appears as part of Uddhava Gita, where he narrates his story to teach how one should tolerate disturbances from evil persons. So harsh words pierce the heart more severely than arrows, yet Avanti Brahmana considered them simply the consequence of his own past deeds and tolerated them soberly. Just another 5 minutes and it will be done. He had been greedy, angry, and miserly agriculturalist and merchant. However, in due course of time, he lost his wealth and was abandoned by everyone. Thus, he developed a deep sense of renunciation and could see Krishna's hand in his life. So, remaining fixed in a spiritual practice, the Avanti Brahmana sang a song known as Bhikshu Gita, where he says, neither the mortals, the demigods, the soul, the planets, the reactions of work, nor time are the causes of one's happiness and distress. Rather, the mind alone makes the soul wander in the cycle of material life. So the real purpose of all charity, religiosity, and so forth is to bring the mind under control. The false ego binds the transcendental soul to material sense, object. So I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of material existence. How? By rendering service to the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda with perfect faith, as exhibited by the great devotees of the past. So thus the Avanti Brahmana, he becomes determined in his renunciation and bhakti, and his example is adored by Lord Chaitanya, who sings this verse even after accepting the renounced order. Then we have the Aila Gita, which is the song of the Pururava. Only one more Gita, then we are done. So Aila Gita is a song of Pururava in Canto 11, chapter 26, 7 to 24. So this is also a part of Uddhava Gita, and it explains how unfavorable association is a threat to one's position in devotional service. Lord Krishna gave the example of Emperor Pururava, also called Aila. Aila was bewildered by the association of heavenly beauty Urvashi, and later became renounced after being separated from her. So, expressing his contempt for undue attachment to the opposite sex, he sang a song called the Aila Gita. So, what it says is that persons who are attached to the body of a woman or a man, which is just a mass of skin, meat, bones, and blood, and so on, are not much different from worms. So, when one's mind is stolen away by the opposite sex, what is the worth of education, austerity, renunciation, Vedic knowledge, and so forth? Learned men should distrust their 6 mental enemies headed by lust, and thus avoid degrading association. So this is how Pururava was freed from illusion and eventually attained peace by realizing the Lord. And the last one is the Bhumi Gita, not the least. This is the song of Mother Earth from Canto 12, chapter 3, verses 1 to 13. Now this Bhumi Gita is sung by Mother Earth, who was lamenting for the foolishness of the kings who were bent upon conquering her. So the great kings were actually just playthings of death, desire to subdue the 6 internal enemies, which are the 5 senses and the mind. And then they imagine that they will go on to conquer the earth and all its oceans. So seeing the false hopes, Mother Earth simply laughs, for eventually they all must leave this planet, as all the great kings of the past have done. Moreover, after they have usurped some part of the earth, which is actually unconquerable and must be given up, the fathers, sons, brothers, friends, and relatives, they start quarreling over it. The study of history of so many kings naturally leads one to conclusion that all worldly achievements are temporary, and this conclusion should give rise to a sense of renunciation. Ultimately, the highest goal of life for any living entity is pure devotion to Lord Krishna. So you can understand how Srimad Bhagavatam, it represents various Gitas, some with philosophy, some with really heartfelt spiritual emotions, and others with deep realizations of different personalities. All what are they? For our enlightenment and our inspiration. So it is not possible to present here the expanse and depth of these great Gitas in a small, in the small whatever today, but it's just only a glimpse of it. So I'm so sorry I just overran, but I thought like there were such lovely Gitas of the Bhagavatam I wanted to share with you all, so please forgive me. I know the creator of the creation of the universe and everything is so mundane, so I thought I'd just bring a little bit of emotion into the chapter, the verses today. So please forgive me for my offenses. The floor is open. Maybe if you want to stay for a minute or so and two, and if any comments, please, and any corrections, any comments, please forgive. me if I've done any mistakes, Mataji's and Prabhuji's. Hare Krishna. I'll end now. Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So if should we if y'all have no questions or anything, then should we close it down now, Mataji, or end the chapter? Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Okay, should we say the Vansha Kalpata prayers? Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki
Jai.
Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Lord Krishna Prabhupada. Thank you everyone so much for
Thank you, Mataji.
listening. I know it's a
Thank
bit
you,
of a
Mataji, for the nice class. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for the wonderful class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mamta, Mataji. Very nice class, very informative.
Oh, thank you for
And with the
staying put,
references. And
Mataji.
so beautiful to see you today after a long time.
Same here, Mataji, after a long time. No?
Yes.
You're okay though.
I'm okay. I asked Sundari Mataji to come as well. Today she's here as well.
Oh, thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. So nice to see you. Thanks for all your support, Thank you.
Hare
No, it
Krishna.
was,
I know Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Sunita, for reminding me to come today.
no, it was very nice class. Very informative. I love it. I love it, Mataji.
Oh, Mataji Krishna, I mean, I don't know what, I hope it, I mean, obviously how things are, the chapter's a bit dry, So, and we are not elevated, so much elevated souls, but at least to remind us.
No, it's very nice, Mataji, because that was very difficult, like the creation of our whole self, where we are and what the parts of the body are representing.
That needs
those
like,
devas.
yes,
It's very,
Mataji.
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, thank
And
you,
I just had
Mataji.
a question. Like different parts of the body representing these different devas. I don't know, just for our own well-being, for our physical health, shall we pray to these particular devas? Is that okay?
Well, you know what, then you will get into a fix again, because we will get more confused. So the best thing is, as we say, water the roots and all the devatas will be satisfied. So just pray to Krishna, Sarvam Krishnarpanamastu. Just give it to Krishna and Krishna will look after everything. That is the best way, because yes, you have to look after your organs, because in your body, you have to look after your hands, look after your legs. I mean, in that way you have to do it. But the ultimate thing is pray to Krishna. If you start praying to different devatas, they will not be satisfied with these things. And they ultimately will go to Vishnu, isn't it? They'll go to Krishna. So why should we take when we can get the president directly, we don't need to go to these ministers, right? Or we can get the prime minister, union ministers. So I think we should go straight.
I know you're right.
Obviously,
yes.
Our spiritual master, for us, our Krishna is our spiritual master first, and through them only we can go to Krishna.
I think it's absolutely right.
Going
yes.
to the spiritual master.
I think that's why we got deviate sometime, Yes,
yes,
you're right.
Yes. And that is why
the whole plant, whole tree will be fed anyway. Right. Yes. Thank you, Mataji. Great. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Then what pronounce?
Hare Krishna.
Hare